Hello! A huge shout out to our newest Patreon member, Rob G, who joined us along with other new members a couple weeks ago. If you've ever wanted to help support Game-Rave TV and the website, check out the Patreon link below. Now, let's get to some reviewing. In late 1997, the PlayStation was firmly planted in the gaming and living rooms of consumers everywhere. Essentially becoming the new Nintendo in pop culture lore, the system was home to an amazing set of fresh intellectual properties and unbelievable sequels. As the world was dragged kicking and screaming into 3D, many gamers worried about how some of their favorite franchises would transition into the third realm from their beloved 2D beginnings. Developer Core decided to take on such a beast, but where their project started is far from where it ended. Released through Eidos, Core's Fighting Force began life as a possible sequel to Sega's Streets of Rage. According to online sources, Sega balked at the thought of a 3D Rage game, so Core switched the title to Judgment Force and began pitching it to magazines and publishers. Eventually, the title was switched to Fighting Force and it was published on the PlayStation and PC platforms. This rocky start to life as a Streets of Rage clone is actually still fairly obvious in the final game, as Hawk and Mace are clearly supposed to be Axel and Blaze from Sega's cast. The majority of villains in the game also look a lot like their Rage versions, right down to color and clothing. This begs the question of wondering how much time Core had to reskin the game before Eidos picked up the publishing rights. Maybe it was a little poke at Sega, since the game never saw the light of day on the Saturn. From this little history lesson, you've already gathered that Fighting Force is, of course, a fighting game, featuring a bountiful amount of stages spread across the map, including a towering enemy hideout. One or two players tackle the enemy waves as they come, and then every few stages will need to make a choice on which path they take. There are two decisions in each playthrough, which helps add to the replay factor. Eventually, you'll make your way to the cult leader Zeng in his curiously underbuilt headquarters. Control is standard fare. You have punch, kick, jump, and a combination of different moves to pull off based on certain button presses. While the reaction time is excellent, the transition between punches and kicks could have been a little bit better. Thankfully, unlike other brawling games, Fighting Force keeps the cheap deaths to a minimum. There were only a handful of times that I felt cheated rather than knowing full well I just wasn't doing that great in the game. Graphically speaking, Fighting Force is a standout example of the PlayStation's capabilities, especially coming out for 1997. Both characters and levels are highly detailed, with some great visual trickery to make areas look larger than they really are. The scene where you are fighting on streets of a downtown city block looked like it could have been straight out of an open-world game like Grand Theft Auto. Other areas contain great use of decor as weapons, like being able to tear firemen's axes out of an emergency case, or knock monitors off the wall and throw them at people. Sound effects and music are done well, but nothing really stands out here. While this really isn't a huge loss, it feels funny knowing that brawlers still haven't touched the audio superiority of Capcom's Final Fight CD all the way back from the Sega CD. The game runs about an hour and a half, or longer if you're prone to dying. You start with no continues and one life bar, but earn more continues based on score milestones. You're able to save your progress after each boss is defeated, so you can at least take a breather when needed. The catch being, if you die, you'll be sent back to the first section on the current stage. While an hour and a half may seem fairly short, it's important to remember this is an arcade-style beat-em-up game. Anything longer and the repetition of actions would simply drag it into the boredom abyss. As an overall package, Fighting Force holds its own with minor quibbles. It won't be winning any Game of the Year awards, but if you're looking for a nostalgic trip with some 3D flair, it's a damn fine title to add to the library. Now, for you variant hunters out there, this is where you start drinking. Fighting Force is one of the PlayStation's most notorious variant sets outside of working designs due to the lack of consistent artwork. While the manuals and inserts were updated, several of the disc arts share the exact same art between them. The only way to know if you have the correct disc is to play it and compare which demos or lack of demos should be on there. Once you have that sorted out, you'll have 7 copies of the same game to track down, which includes its collector's edition released in the 3-pack set. Blessedly, the game has remained super cheap thanks to the multiple releases. A complete copy will only set you back between $4 to $12, while the 3-pack will obviously be more expensive. And that's really all there is to it. A darn good game with what was supposed to have been the legendary series ends up becoming more of an enjoyable memory than anything else. With that, I'll close out this week's episode, as next time I see you, we'll need to go over the top games of 1997. Man, time's flying. That said, you guys, have a great holiday weekend. For those that celebrate, have a great Christmas. For those that don't, enjoy the day off, hopefully. Other than that, I will see you guys in the final week of 2017. My God, it's going to be 2018 already. Take care, you guys. Have a great one. And as always, play, laugh, love. See you next time.